The Greedy Shepherd. Somewhere on a lofty mountain on the other side of the world from where you are now, sat a greedy shepherd under a tree, surrounded by his flock of sheep.
The monotony is getting to me now. I have nothing to do, which is not a bad thing, but I'd rather do nothing in a house made of gold, where servants follow my orders, and my wife pours a glass of the finest juice whenever I ask her to.
Yes, the shepherd often wished that something magical would happen to him. And that day, as he sat there daydreaming, he suddenly saw something gliding stealthily through the grass towards a big, bare rock. It was followed by another, and yet another.
Snakes?
Yes, they were finely marked serpents with colorful glistening scales, and each bore in its mouth a curious root, with which it touched the rock until suddenly the great rock fell asunder, showing a long passage in the ground, into which the serpents glided one by one.
Holy sheep! I better go find what is going on. A man seldom beholds such majestic sight in his lifetime.
And so, as curiosity got the better of him, the shepherd followed the venomous creatures and pressed boldly into the rocky gallery. A staircase as dark as the far side of the moon led him down to a cave lit by the gleam of the many precious gems that lined its walls. In its center stood a magnificent throne of gold, set with emeralds and sapphires, and coiled upon this was an enormous serpent with gleaming eyes. The shepherd, having seen the precious gems, forgot all about fear as his greed took over him. He hid himself behind a half-wall and watched in anticipation. All the snakes gathered under the throne of their king and dropped the roots to the ground. Then they looked at their leader, who hissed a soul-piercing hiss and then closed his eyes. As soon as he did that, all the snakes immediately fell asleep.
Now is my time. Thank you, God. I shall finally have my golden house.
Seizing the opportunity, the shepherd came out and walked across to wall, examining the jewels with which it was so richly encrusted.
I wish I had carried a sack with me, but fine. I will fill my pockets as much as I can.
And so he began to try to detach the precious gems from the wall. He tried and tried and tried, but it was impossible to pluck them out.
I should have known better. This place is enchanted, and an ordinary man like me can never take these gems out of here. I better leave, for if these reptiles wake up, I am done.
The shepherd made his way back through the long passage, his heart pounding. But as soon as he reached the entrance, he realized that it was closed, and there was no way he could open it.
Oh no, this is it! The end of me!
There he sat, lamenting his foolish act, thinking about his wife and the plate of rice and curry that he would have had he not been greedy.
And the curry.
He cried and cried and cried until he fell into a deep slumber. Strangely, it was the most peaceful sleep that the shepherd had ever slept, until he was awakened by the sound of several snakes hissing. His heart jumped into his mouth, and he carefully walked down the stairs to see all the snakes with their heads erect, gaze at their monarch stupefied.
Is it time, O king? Is it time? Is it time, O king? Is it time?
Is it time, O king? Is it time?
Is it time, O king? Is it time?
The Snake King hissed and then said,
Yes, it is time.
Then, gliding down from his throne, he led them through the grotto back to the rock. It opened as he touched it, and every serpent passed slowly out before him. The shepherd thought it was his chance and made a dart towards the opening when the Serpent King turned its head and hissed menacingly. So strong was the hiss that the shepherd fell off the stairs and felt his heart almost explode.
You enter our abode without invitation and then try to sneak out? You will pay for intrusion.
Let me through, I beg you. Oh, gracious king. I shall lose my flock if I leave it longer, and my wife will be waiting for me at home. She has no one else in the world but me.
At this, the angry pupils of the Snake King calmed down.
Fine. I will let you go this time. If you give me your solemn promise that you will not reveal our home to anyone.
I promise, I promise, I promise.
The Snake King nodded and let the shepherd pass out of the rock. The shepherd, thanking his stars, came out of the rock and hurried straight for his home, forgetting all about his sheep. As he approached his cottage, he saw a stranger standing by the door. He waited and watched.
Is your husband at home?
Alas, no! I have not seen him since last autumn, when he left to tend his flock on the mountainside. I fear the wolves must have devoured him. Touched by her distress, the shepherd now came forward. The wife, upon seeing him, rushed into his arms and cried tears of happiness.
Now, my good man, where have you been since autumn? It's not very gentlemanly of you to leave your wife alone, is it?
I was...
You were?
Yes, where were you?
Is there another in your life?
Huh? No, never. I love my wife.
Then answer this gentleman. Where were you? Thus pressed, the shepherd reluctantly confessed the existence of the underground cave, and the stranger, who happened to be a magician in disguise, forced him not only to guide him there, but to reveal the manner of entrance.
I don't think it is a good idea.
Trust me, friend. I am a magician. The Snake King can't do us any harm. We will collect the gems and then share it equally.
At this, the eyes of the shepherd shone, and he forgot about his promise that he had made to the Snake King. Greed took over him once again. Next, he ushered the magician to the big rock. A root that a serpent had discarded lay at their feet, and on touching the rock with this, it opened immediately and let them through. Inside the cave, which was strangely empty now, the magician slowly began to tap on the gems with his wand, and one by one, they began to fall from the wall and into his bag.
We will soon be the richest men in the whole world.
But just then, they felt the breath of a being behind them. A chill ran down the shepherd's spine, and the two turned around slowly. It was the Snake King, who now looked bigger than ever, and his rage was so great that the shepherd thought his end had come.
Do not fear, my friend.
The hiss of the Snake King now turned into a growl as he slowly began to turn into a green dragon.
No!
The shepherd made a run for his life, but the cave was small and confined.
You betrayed me.
With a powerful strike, the shepherd was flung into the air, but luckily for him, he landed on the back of the dragon and held on to its horns. The dragon, now angrier and more furious, made a loud roar and leapt into the air and flew out of the cave. The dragon flew higher and higher until the shepherd grew dizzy and lost his breath. His eyes were closed, but in the blue sky above him, he could hear the sweet, clear notes of a soaring lark.
Dear Lord, I have learned my lesson. Please forgive me for what I have done.
At that moment, the lark came flying beside the dragon. Are you really sorry? Or will you do it again if you are forgiven this time too?
What can I say but this? I have learnt in the hard way once and the hardest way the next.
We shall see. Saying that, the lark flew up to the dragon's neck and pecked on it once. The dragon immediately turned into a snake, and then gravity did what it does the best. When the shepherd regained consciousness, he was on the mountainside with his flocks around him. The forest was still in its autumn glory of yellow and gold, and in the distance he could see his wife beckoning to him from his cottage door.
I must have been dreaming. Wow, what a dream it was. I guess sometimes dreams teach you more than life itself. From now on, I will stop daydreaming and work hard.
And with that, he went home to his wife. From behind the tree, the Snake King emerged and smiled as he watched the shepherd go. It then turned into the lark and flew away, maybe in search of someone else who needs an intervention in their dreams.